I'd like to now recognize my colleague from California and fellow recovering computer scientist, Ted Lieu, for 5 minutes.
Thank you. As a recovering computer and science major, it is clear to me that creating a pathway for decryption only for good guys is technologically stupid. You just can't do that. But I'm more interested now in knowing if this were to happen, what would the effect of this be on global companies and global app developers? And Mr. Powder, in your testimony, you raised concerns that device pathway will introduce technological vulnerabilities to mobile applications. What effect would the pathway have on the global application developers market?
Thank you for that question, Congressman Lieu. Today, every app developer thinks that their marketplace is global, their opportunity is global. The Google Play Store is global, the Apple devices are global. The challenge is, in Europe, we have a very different privacy regime than we have in the United States. And Europe has already made, European leaders have already spoken quite bluntly that if they strengthen their privacy laws, it will in fact harm U.S. companies and create business opportunities for European companies. So European leaders in the privacy area are very concerned about, and they've been pretty blunt about it, Facebook, Amazon, Google, collecting data, things like that, and what do they do with the data? And they are extraordinarily distressed with the U.S. government vacuuming up data throughout the world, including listening to phone calls of some of their leaders. The combination of that, of the political angst and the business stress, creates a very easy opportunity for them to simply say that any company that has a back door, particularly to the U.S. government, which at least in the minds of European leaders does not have a great history of using those back doors with discipline, creates a vulnerability that is unlawful under European privacy law, and therefore you'd be banned from the European market.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to reserve the balance of my time to make a statement. It's primarily directed at Mr. Conley. I respect your public service. I take great offense at your testimony today. You mentioned that unaccountable corporate interests such as Apple and Google are essentially protecting those who rape, defraud, assault, and kill. I think that's offensive. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of the problem. Why do you think Apple and Google are doing this? It's because the public is demanding it. People like me, privacy advocates, a public that doesn't want an out-of-control surveillance state. It is a public that is asking for this. Apple and Google didn't do this because they thought they'd make less money. This is a private sector response to government overreach. Then you make another statement that somehow these technology companies are not credible because they also collect private data. Well, here's the difference. Apple and Google don't have coercive power. District attorneys do, the FBI does, the NSA does. And to me, it's very simple to draw out the privacy balance when it comes to law enforcement and privacy. Just follow the damn Constitution. And because the NSA didn't do that, and other law enforcement agencies didn't do that, you are seeing a vast public reaction to this. Because the NSA, your colleagues, have essentially violated Fourth Amendment rights of every American citizen for years by seizing all of our phone records, by collecting our internet traffic. That now is spilling over to other aspects of law enforcement. And if you want to get this fixed, I suggest you write to NSA, and the FBI should tell the NSA, stop violating our rights. And then maybe you'd have the public much more on the side of supporting some of what law enforcement is asking for. And then let me just conclude by saying I do agree with law enforcement that we live in a dangerous world. And that's why our founders put in the Constitution of the United States. That's why they put in the Fourth Amendment, because they understand that an Orwellian, overreaching federal government is one of the most dangerous things that this world can have. I yield back. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have some more questions along the lines of how easy it would be to defeat one of these pathways. So let's say we pass a law that says, okay, the Apple iPhone now has to have this pathway only for good guys. What's to keep a terrorist, and this is for Dr. Blaze, for example, from saying, even though I like the multicolored Apple iPhones, I'm going to switch to Samsung phones? Is there anything stopping that from happening?
No, fundamentally, any application, the ease of loading application software and the wide variety of platforms that we have make it very simple for somebody who's determined to use unbreakable encryption to do so. It might not be as easy or as inexpensive as we'd like it to be, but there are no fundamental barriers to it.
And currently, right now, there's nothing preventing two people anywhere in the world from downloading an encryption program to encrypt end-to-end those two communications that would make this pathway essentially meaningless. Is that correct?
That's right. Now, there may be vulnerabilities on the computers that run that software, and in fact, there likely would be for the reasons that I discussed in my written testimony, but the encrypted messages themselves in transit would be effectively impossible in practice to decrypt.
And is it your understanding that sometimes terrorists now resort to something as simple as just writing something on a piece of paper so they're off the grid?
Well, I'm not an expert on terrorists, but I'd imagine that paper and pencil technology is well within their
And we don't say that companies who make paper shredders are somehow protecting terrorists, correct?
I've never heard that said.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about computer code. It's true, isn't it, that computer code is neutral. That is, the code cannot tell if the person reading the code or accessing the code is Asian or the leader of Hamas or the FBI director or a gay or a woman or a man. As long as you've got the key to that encryption, you get in the system, correct?
That's right.
The NSA, would you agree, has one of the most secure systems in the world?
I think they have enormous expertise.
Curious, isn't it, that we now know so many secrets about the NSA, not because of technology, but because we have human beings. And so another aspect of all of this is you'd be asking the American public to trust all the human beings in the federal government who could be looking at private data. And it turns out, right, that sometimes human beings do things you don't want them to do, such as this one person who now disclosed all these secrets of the NSA, even though that is one of the most secure systems in the world.
The operational aspects of maintaining any kind of large-scale secure system are enormously daunting, as I think the NSA discovered 2 years ago.
Thank you, and I yield back.